In this video, I'm going to show you how to fold Llopio's Moment of Truth designed by Neal Elias. It's quite an advanced model, but in my opinion, well worth the effort. I'll be using a sheet of paper with a height of 20 centimeters or 7 7/8 of an inch and a length of about 60 centimeters or 23 5/8 of an inch. The exact ratio needs to be 1 by 2 5/6, but it's actually easier to fold the first few steps and then cut the sheet to the right length. So starting with a sheet that's close enough to 1 by 3 will do if you want to follow this video. Now the finished model will then have a height of about 10 centimeters or 4 inches, a length of about 10.75 centimeters or 4 1/4 of an inch, and a depth of about 5 centimeters or 2 inches depending on shaping. Now I recommend using paper that folds flat really easily and that is quite sturdy. I'm using tissue foil, which you can make yourself with kitchen foil, tissue paper and some white glue. And I've even got a video on how to do that if you're interested. So let's get started. As you can see here, I've got dual colored paper, brown and red. And for a red cape and a brown bull and matador, we're going to start with the red side up. And first we need to mark 3 squares, or actually 2 squares, and then the rest, and some of that will be cut off. The first 2 squares will be water bomb bases, so let's go ahead and start with that. We're first going to mark the diagonals because we don't actually know where the square is. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and as it's quite an advanced model, I'm going to assume you know the very basic folds. If you don't, this model might be a bit challenging for you right now, and you might want to come back to it later. So diagonals, and then we're going to make a mountain fold seen from the red side. So a valley fold to mark the first square, and I actually like to just refold one of those diagonals so that I can get it nice and accurate on each side. You know, I like to include these small pointers on how to get better accuracy. Once I've got both of those sides marked, just crease through. And we also need a crease in the center for the water bomb base. So let's add that now. Just ensure it's nice and accurate. And then we can proceed with the pre-creasing for the second water bomb base. Now, before we collapse these water bomb bases, we need to also have thirds on this last, well, square or almost square. As you can see, mine isn't quite a square anymore. And for that, I'm just going to use the estimation method of rolling the paper, which is, well, not the easiest with tissue foil, but I still find it the quickest fix. So, just going to try and get these 3 sides to match up, to have thirds. Checking and adapting. Okay, that seems about right. I'm just going to pinch that. And we now need to divide this into 12 equal sections. And in that direction, basically 2 if it were a square, so that we have a grid for some box pleating later. So I'm first going to use those marks for the thirds and using this crease line to get a straight crease. And then same on the other side. And I'm going to go ahead and do basically the thirds on this before I do the 12ths because I find it a bit easier. So for that I'm going to crease the diagonal up to about the center. We don't need any more than that. And now here you can see I don't quite have a square here. I wanted to have a quite large sheet so that you can really see the steps close up, and that meant sacrificing a little of that, 1/3. Okay, so now here's the other third, and I'm going to go through that. And now I'm going to do the 12ths here by doing quarters on each of the thirds. Right now I'm not concerned about the direction of the creases, so I'm just going to crease whichever direction I find easier in that moment. Okay, so now we have 12 equal parts in this direction, and now we can do the other direction. I'm going to mark, using the first third, I'm going to mark the second third of that implied square. Just have to check this is the fold I'm referencing to get another third. And then do quarters on those. Now in the beginning I mentioned we need to have a ratio of 1/2 5/6, which means that we have to have 5/6 of a square here. Because we are doing a division into 12ths, it's quite easy. So we have 4 here, we are going to have 4 here, and then just 2 here. So if I cut off, you can see this is 1/6, 2 12ths. If I just cut off as much as is required so that I have another 6 here, then we're good to go. And as you can see, I cut it quite close here, but as I mentioned, I wanted to have a sheet where you can see as many details as possible. So then I'm just going to take a cutting mat and a knife and a steel ruler and just align it and cut it. Now, of course, you can cut your paper to the exactly right size right away, but you'd probably do something very similar to what I did other than measuring, which can be quite imprecise. So now we just have to complete the division into 12ths. Then we'll do the collapse of the water bomb bases, and we'll have, well, the model is going to be smaller already, so it'll be easier to capture all of it on camera, all of it in a frame. So here we go. Now we have 2 water bomb bases pre-creased, and then a grid of 12 by 12, except that we cut off 2 12ths. So it's basically a grid of 12 by 10. So now we're going to form 2 water bomb bases going along the pre-creasing. Number 1, and fold it behind. And number 2, and fold it behind. So now we have all of these layers stacking up in the top, and then we're going to collapse in a box pleating fashion on here. So we're going to go along the first square's diagonal, just pinch it into place, same on the other side. Okay, then go along these creases that are the first ones in a valley fold. It's the only way you can really go. And as it's an advanced model, I might not be going into as much detail as I would usually. Then you have the next small diagonal of one of those squares, and now you have valley folds seen from this brown side, the color of the bull and the Matador. You might also use black, for example, but I find brown is a nice choice and it picks up much nicer on camera. Folding black, you can't see the creases as nicely, and that's why I chose to go with a brown, which also seems a natural choice. And you just continue with that, as you can see, one more time, so that in the center you will still have two squares uncreased, and we're not going to collapse those, but we're then going to check that we've got it nice and neat. We're just going to fold these layers over so that they flatten down, and then we flatten this and make sure that you get nice precision by really having the creases you create now go to where that crease line meets the edge, so that you have a perfect diagonal, and then we're going to push this down. So you push it down, and then you check the other side before you do so, and check that that crease really meets exactly the crease lines of the grid you did. And then you have the space. This is the Matador, and then you've got the bull, and part of this is going to be the cape. Now the first step is that we actually fold this behind so that we can sink these corners. So you bring it up to the center. If you want, you can keep this folded to have a nice reference where the center is. Make strong creases. You're going through quite a couple of layers, and same on the other side. You're going to have to do 2 open sinks. Make strong creases. If you have a bone folder, you might go along there, and then unfold and open up to do open sinks. I always like to open it up quite wide and make a table pop up, if that makes sense. And then pinch the diagonals and bring them in, and now you need to be careful to really get it nice and precise, especially if you're using tissue foil. Every paper type has its advantages and disadvantages, and tissue foil folds flat very nicely and can be collapsed not so nicely. So it likes to crumble, but then you can shape it very nicely in the end. And you know, having the paper fold very flat and it being very stiff and staying in place is it makes it much easier to get a nice finish on this model. Let's put it like that. So, collapsing the second open sink, and flattening it down. Okay, now we can open this up, and we want to make another water bomb base kind of here. So we need a crease that starts in this point and goes up in a 45-degree angle. So we're going to start the crease here, and it will quite naturally go there just because of the layers you've got, but try to make it nice and precise. I'm not making super strong creases here because I prefer to make them strong when I do the actual collapse to get just that tad more precision than I would just by following blindly, because there are layers and they do take up space. So now these are mountain folds. If you bring them in and you flatten, and now I can really strengthen those creases all the way to the top. And now you can really start seeing that bullfighter emerge. And not quite happy with the precision here, so I'm just going to fix it a little as I see it. There we go. And now follows what I find is one of the trickier steps. We're going to unfold this and we need to sink a square in the center here. So I'm just going to add creases to that already implied square to make it a little easier. Just use the creases you already have for reference. And there's one just to finish the square in the bottom. So you can see you have the diagonals, you have these creases now. Now you're going to complete the square, just about. And I'm not going to make a strong crease here again. And now we're going to refold this water bomb base, but we're going to at the same time sink this square. So I like to fold these diagonals up to that square, can you see it? And then basically keep that propped up and then go behind. In here you can see there's all these layers and push right there to get that square. I'm trying to not close it too much so that you can see, to get that square to go down. Can you see here? So that it will fold down right there. And I fear it's a bit hidden, but I hope we'll manage fine. So, and you will see that this opens up the paper here a little. Can you see that? You've got this line and it's going to flatten down. You need that extra paper, and then you can push on there, really push on it. Keep this quite neat. And you can see a triangle emerging, and you want that to be quite neat, and because it's a small space, you can use a toothpick or a bone folder or just something so that you can go in there and push it out. Can you see that was some crumbling, and now it's not there anymore. And then you've got this collapsed, and I'm just going to open it up a little again. You can see you have that square collapsed, and we might even be able to neaten it up a bit more, although it won't make that big of a difference. So this is one of the more difficult steps. I'm just going to try and show you what it looks like from here in case you're not sure you got it right. So if I open this up here, you can see that the paper here, this is the water bomb base right there. That point down below is this one right here. Okay, so I'm just going to close this back up, and we can now take a breath because we've got a really difficult step done. Now this is going to be part of the cape, most of it actually, and we want it to be colored red. So we're going to make a color change. So we're going to take, let's get this out of the way slightly. So we're going to take one layer, and you can see here this is kind of cut off because of the collapse. And we're going to take that layer, open it up, push on this point to flip it over. Again, not as easy with tissue foil as it is with normal origami paper. So we've got that point inverted, and then we're going to go along the creases that are already there. You can see here you've got that triangle, and you've got a straight crease here, and you push it And now you have your color change done. Just ensure that you neaten it up. And that's that. Now we have these layers here, and we need to form both the head and the arms. So we're going to do something that's called the Elias Stretch, so that we can get this one flap into 3 flaps. And for this, we're going to first just squash one of these sections so that you have a diagonal. And squash it down. And this is just preparation. Then you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 squares is what you're going for. And then you're going to do another diagonal, at least implied. And do 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's not miscount. Then you're going to do the next diagonal, okay? And then you're going to have small diagonals here and there. You can just pinch them into place. And then you have the final one, and you have again small diagonals here. And then you have one arm and half an upper body with head, and you do the same thing on the other side. So again, make that first diagonal, and then you can again count, but this time that's all that's remaining. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the second diagonal, and then again collapse by pinching together until you have your arm formed. And now you can see we have 3 flaps rather than 1. Okay, so now the Matador is quite advanced already. Let's work on the bull. For this, we're going to open these flaps here, and then let's get this out of the way a little. We're going to fold this up, basically as far as it goes, going through this point and that point right there. And we're going to make, we're going to make petal folds. So for that, we're first going to squash this down so that we basically have half a preliminary base, and then we're going to bring the sides in. You could say we're making a small reverse fold here if you like. It's one side and the other one. I prefer to do this without pre-creasing. Okay. Well, I find it makes it a little more precise. But it might actually be easier if you pre-crease these. So, well, I can show you on this one. We have 4 of these that we have to do, although the 2 in the top are a bit easier. And I'll show you in a second why. So you could open this up in a squash, no need for pre-creasing here. But you can now bring these sides in and fold them, and then bring the sides in along the pre-creasing, and that is, well, for me it's definitely faster, but I find that the tip sometimes doesn't get as precise. So that you have your petal fold, and I'm going just to adjust that crease a little bit. There we go. And now in the bottom, oh, I brought one layer too much up, doesn't matter. I'm just going to fold it down again. Like that. Up, flatten. Okay. So that now we have 2 layers here too. And we have extra paper here, and that's why the lower of these petal folds are a bit more interesting. So you can see here, when I want to go ahead and squash this, I have 3 layers here, where before I just had these outer 2 ones. So we're going to go ahead and have that middle layer go down and not up. And then you do your petal fold just like before, except that one of these sides has extra layers. And the more layers there are, the more imprecise pre-creasing for a petal fold gets. So I hope you're fine with me going ahead and not pre-creasing again. I think it's really up to you, and you should try whatever you prefer. And I think different things work for different people, and that's totally fine. And just make some suggestions on what works for me. And if you're folding this model, I'm guessing you have quite some folding experience already, and so you will know what works for you. Okay, let's complete that petal fold. Okay, now we have all 4 petal folds. Let's again orient this so that this cape is down in the left corner. And now we're going to fold out, actually this is still on both sides, but after that it changes. We're going to fold out this triangle as far as it goes, and it goes up to the center of that petal fold. Make a nice crease. And same on the other side. And now we need to bring some paper forward. You can see here that petal fold, we're just going to bring it forward and fold it inside. And I can show you, this is before, this is after. You've got this paper right here brought to the front, and you just open it, fold it out, and then flatten that paper, making a valley fold here, going along existing creases. And the same below, although it's a little less accessible because of the Matador. And this is color change required to make the bull brown and not red. Okay, this is going to be the tail, and this is going to be the head. And then here we've got the legs. We're going to fold them in half, because we're going to collapse this down further in a second. And these we're going to fold down, because these are going to be the horns. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to mountain fold this in half right along here. And of course we also need to form the front legs, and for that we're going to open this up here, open that up there, so that it's like this, and then go ahead like that. And then turn over and do the same thing on that side, opening it up and folding it out. And now, before we actually form the front legs, we're going to fold out the horns. And you can see this paper right here from the petal folds. And we're going to inside reverse it so that you go exactly to this point right here. You can see this is kind of where you have the triangle of the petal fold, and you bring it forward so that you have this crease, this edge align exactly with that point. Can you see that here? And same on the other side. You open it up, you add a crease that starts in that point down here, and you close it so that it goes exactly with that. And now that we have used that reference, we can now form the front legs, and this layer is thicker than this one, and there's just extra paper, and that doesn't matter too much. We're going to have a long valley fold along here, and then a mountain fold basically on the angle bisector. So we're bringing down this paper like that. Okay, so that's one side. And then, of course, you do the same on the other side. Just ensuring that you make this quite precise. There's a lot of layers. This is where tissue foil really pays off. And these are your front legs. They're going to be quite covered by the cape, but that's okay. Now let's look at this a bit closer up. And here we've got the head, and as you can see, it's red and brown. So let's take out a single layer of paper here. You can see it right here. And bring that out so that we don't have any red there anymore. As you can see here. And then we're just going to open that up completely. It also makes a color change on the horns. And the same on the other side. There we go. Now the horns are still too wide, and we also need to here suggest the rest of the head. So first I'm going to take this top layer and just fold it in about halfway of the section. You might see a crease there, just so that you can make it look the same on both sides. Bring that in like that. And then these horns you're going to thin and make narrower by folding them in half, like that. And same on the other side. You should have enough paper to play with here. Okay, and then we want to shape those horns further. We're first going to make an inside reverse fold that goes right up to that point. Okay, like that. Can you see that? And when you have that, you're also going to make a small reverse fold back up to shape the horn further. And this is really shaping up to your taste, depending on what expression you want to give the bull. I'll go with something like this for the horn, and repeat on the other side. Now we've got the head, and that needs to be adjusted down. And you're going to basically go inside these layers right here and crimp it down to taste. And I'm going to just push that down here. You can see going in here you've got mountain folds, and then next to it valley folds. And you adjust it to the pose you like. You can see that happening here already. I'm going to leave it at that, and then we're going to make a very, very thin inside reverse fold here, because we want to have a bit of paper to play with to form the jaw of that bull. So you can see very narrow. And then you have a little bit of paper right here. Just fold that up so that you have a jaw implied here. Okay, so the head's basically done. Let's look at the tail. So let's bring the Matador to that side. And we're first going to inside reverse fold right along these edges right here. Try to get rid of all the red. There. And then we're going to bring this back up, but we're going to keep this folded inside and add mountain folds here to sink that portion of the red paper while bringing up the brown portion for the tail. And to do that sink, you're going to be using some paper that's trapped inside here. So if you want to push this closed, you will see that you need extra paper to do so. So if you just pull here a little, you will see there's paper. And when you close this up, you will be using that paper. You can see that paper right here actually. And you can help it by really opening that up if you want. Might make it a bit easier if you're unsure. And you can even try and make this neat. You know I always like to neaten up things, even in areas where you're not going to be able to tell the difference. But here you can see it will be a straight mountain fold if you fold it neatly. And then you have your tail, and we're going to narrow it with, basically a rabbit ear fold on this side and on that side. So you'll have mountain folds here and there to collapse it down. And because it's on both sides, it's called a double rabbit ear, if you've ever encountered that before. And then you can see something that looks like a petal fold, and we're going to fold it in half. And then you have a narrower tail, and that we're going to inside reverse fold here just a little bit to shape the tail. You could also twist it if you like, or adjust it in any way you like, really. And there we go. You can also round it a little bit. Okay, so that's the tail done. We've got the legs, we've got the head. I think we should focus on the Matador. So, now I told you we have the arms here. Let's fold them so that they point up. And first we're going to indicate the end of the upper body and the start of the lower body. You can see that we have this cut off triangle here, and that's the reference. We're going to make a crimp going like in a mountain fold along the diagonal of that grid square, and then we'll have a valley fold just halfway. So we can go in the middle here and press in that mountain fold on both sides. Lots of layers here. Okay, you can really flatten that down if you want. And then you bring it back up to add that valley fold right here and right there. And as a reference, you can take that crease from the grid, and that is going to be exactly covered by the mountain fold. And there's so many layers of paper here that you might have to fight with the paper a little bit. Just be patient so that you don't rip it. And then you should have something kind of like this, with the Matador now leaning forwards a little, and you've got your legs and your arms. Now let's do the legs first, because I think the arms and the head are, you now know, a nice final step. And we're going to go just along here in a mountain fold. We're going to go 1, 2, and 3 squares, and then we're going to add a diagonal. So just taking this right here, aligning it so that I'm going halfway. That's 1, 2, 3, and then the third one goes up to the point of the grid again, so that you have a 22.5-degree angle, and then you do another one right along here, along that rectangle with the grid. And this is not going to flatten down completely, and that's fine. Now down here you have the height of a full grid square, but we're just going to go halfway and fold this up. We're going to form a foot here now. So really flattening that, and then we're going to fold it down like this. You can see the foot emerging, and then we're going to reverse that square and also shorten that foot, so that we're basically forming a mountain fold from that point down here to that one up there. Pushing that paper in, then you've got a small triangle there, and we can just fold it behind or do an inside reverse fold if you want. So that's one leg shaped, and let's take a look at the other one. We've got the other leg right here, and the first step is to do an inside reverse fold that goes all the way up there. So we're going as far as we can really with this paper. Can you see? We've got a mountain fold here, and straighten it out, and then if you want to close this back up, look in there and flatten. Need to play with this a little to be able to, you know, make this go all the way to the top. Yes, you will see some red paper, and that's fine. We actually want to see that red paper. Okay? And then we have this paper right here, and first we're going to make that visible even more by folding this in half. Right there. You see that? And right here you will swivel some paper inside to make that narrowing of the legs go all the way to the top. That. Now you have this section of paper. Don't worry about the red, I just mentioned it. And you inside reverse fold it to the other side, matching this up nicely. Okay, and then you've got another triangle here, and you will fold it simply behind. There we go. Now we have that red paper, and it's actually a continuation of that cape. So that means we are going to pull it out even more. So just loosen that paper up and open it so that it now shows really nicely. Okay. Now we want to form the foot here. We're going to take as a reference basically where this cape stops, just about. And we're going to add a crimp, so it's going to be a mountain fold, maybe like that, and then a valley fold back up, and I'm going to open it up to do it on both sides simultaneously to get that paper back up. You can see here we're hiding some paper and the creases meet in this point. And then we're going to reverse this paper to bring it to the other side. And this is really just shaping, so you can do really whatever you like, but I'm just going to make this down here a bit straighter, bringing in that paper that you can still see in the back, so that you get this foot. And now, do we want to finish the Matador or do we want to finish the cape first? Well, let's go with the cape. And we're first going to fold it in from that point all the way in, so that we can see our nice bull again. And this is not going to come to a point down here. There's going to be just a bit of space. And then we're going to add a swivel fold right here, having like a mountain fold and a valley fold to have, you know, some movement in the cape. You want it to really have the feeling that the Matador is, you know, doing his dance and performing the enticing of that bull. And then down here we want to add maybe another crease. Doesn't really matter too much. I actually prefer to here not completely flatten the creases, because I kind of want it to, well, you know, really feel free, and perhaps go something like this. And now, when we're happy with the cape, and I think that looks quite nice, we can work on the arms. It's actually better to do it this way around, so that we know where we need to point the arms so that it really looks like it's handling that cape. So for the arms, first it needs to be narrower. Both of them need to be. So we're going to make a rabbit ear right here, make a valley fold on all three sides, and have this arm point to the back, and this arm is going to point to the front. It will be holding the cape. And there we go. Now we need to adjust the arm a little bit so that it can actually hold the cape. So you can just do that by adjusting the creases right here. Can you see that? That's the crease before, and I'm adjusting it a little so that the arm is down by the cape. And then I'm going to thin the arm with a mountain fold right here, and this is up to taste. If you want a reference, perhaps about 1 grid square. And then we're going to make a small crimp to get a hand shape like that. And I like to have it pointing so that it's actually on the cape. Okay, now we have this arm right here, and we're going to make a reverse fold, and this is, you know, about halfway, wherever you think an elbow should go, really. And then let's see, let me quickly check. I want to make a nice reverse fold. I want to see which layers I need to align. Sometimes unfolding helps with that. So I need to align these layers right there. Okay, and then we're going to do a mountain fold right along here, and, you know, adjust it so that this just feels about right. And then I'm just going to make that hand less pointy, if you can see that. Okay, and if you want, you can also bring that in a bit more and adjust the angle here. I think that's what I'm gonna do, and I think I like that a bit better. Now for the head, we're going to make another double rabbit ear, so rabbit ear on both sides, making a mountain fold along here, along there, and then the length of this. I'm just going to pre-crease it slightly so that I can make it symmetrical on both sides, leaving just a bit of space to the arm so that you have a nice separation of the different body parts. And then I'm going to open this up. One side's pre-creased, the other one has the creases in the other direction, so I'm reversing them. And then you've got this. I'm going to bring this to that side. Okay. And then we're going to do a reverse fold, and you need to keep a bit of space right here because this forms the head, okay? So don't go all the way to the point inside, else you won't have a matador's head. Okay. Like that. Then you're going to fold this section down to form the hair of the matador. So this is an outside reverse fold, technically speaking. Can you see that? Now you've got the face, this is the head. If you want, you can adjust the hair or the cap, whatever you think it should be. Like that, so that, you know, it also looks a bit in motion. And once you've got that shaped, finally, let's just narrow the body by adding a mountain fold here to give the matador a bit of a more lean physique. And that's one side, and then also the other. And then, believe it or not, your Llopio's Moment of Truth, designed by Neal Elias, is all done. And if you enjoyed this model, I'm sure you'll enjoy more of Neal Elias's work. There are multiple booklets published by the BUS and Dave Venables, and the one that includes diagrams for this model here is the one of selected works from 1964 to 1973. The diagrams are also included on the DVD, The Origami World of Neal Elias, and this DVD is an absolutely fantastic resource. It includes a copy of over 1,500 pages from Neal Elias's notebooks, which gives you access to well over 1,000 of his models. So if you like his work, you absolutely should get this. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you will also want to watch my tutorial for Neal Elias's Last Waltz, an absolutely gorgeous model. Or check out my playlist on other origami characters. I've also got a playlist of further advanced origami models which you may enjoy. And if you liked this video, why don't you let me know by commenting, giving it a thumbs up and sharing it with your friends. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my next videos. And finally, do check out my website happyfolding.com for more origami content. I hope to see you around, and happy folding!